And I'm Nicole, and of course we're here today to talk about editing and polishing your dissertation. So this is a step that comes after writing, which is the step that you're all in. And I'm happy to talk about the writing as well, if that would be more useful for you, or we can focus on what you'll be doing once you're finished writing. Just to start off, I would like to kind of understand a bit about why you guys are here. So I would love if on the yellow sticky note, although it doesn't really matter, I like color coding, if you could just put the area of your work that you feel needs the most work, or that you're most concerned about. Maybe that's a section of your thesis, maybe that's a particular part of your writing, just the thing that you feel like, that's the part that's got me a little bit worried, or I need a little bit of help with, or I think it's going to take the most time. And on the blue, I would love for you to put the note that throughout your academic experience you've got the most from professors, from tutors, so the most common feedback you get about your writing, whether that's positive or perhaps something that you need to improve on. Okay? Great. And when you're finished, if you want to just stick them up over there, I have them up on the wall, and then we'll just get those up and we'll see what we're here for. So that's a really common one. We have quite a bit of too descriptive or be more critical. And that's something, that's okay. That's something that comes through in draft. So part of the editing process is not just polishing. It's not just, dotting your I's and crossing your T's, although that's something you need to do. It's also about revising your work, restructuring your work, turning your work from something that might be largely descriptive to something that's very analytical, and that's really going to show it off in the best way and get the best marks. So is that something everyone's had some trouble with in the past, being a little too descriptive and not critical, analytical enough? Yeah, definitely. I think that's the hardest thing, actually, is to put your own knowledge and opinion into something, but in a really academic way, so that you're not just saying something that isn't referenced or backed up. That's really hard, because you can do it, you're like, oh, that time I was really critical, and you get it back, and it's like, this is just your opinion, this isn't academic, and you're like, oh, okay, next time I'll do it differently. You get it back, and they're like, this is just descriptive, this is not an academic analysis, and you're like, oh, okay. So it's finding that point in between that's backed up and referenced, but it's still original, and that's still you. It's not just you summarizing someone else. So that's part of the editing process, which is exciting. This is just really quick. I'm going to fly through this part, and what I want you to do is say, actually, that's the part that I'm working on. Please, can we talk about the dissertation? I have a question about this. I have a question about the lit review, etc. And at that point, I'll just stop, and we'll talk about it more in depth. Trust me, you're not alone. Like, whatever question you have, everyone else is like, I really wanted to ask that, but I didn't stop her. So please do stop me. So really quickly, this doesn't include your abstract and acknowledgements, although you will have that at the very beginning. This is the basic format. Yours might look slightly different depending on your discipline. And the first thing as well that you all should have done, and if you haven't, when you go home I want you to do it, is to look at discipline-specific dissertations from other people, to look at some good examples of published dissertations that are at your level, and just to see what they've done and how they've done. Now, you don't have to, copy them exactly, but that's the best way to find out how people tend to format things in your discipline. If you're like, oh, I really like that, more is the better. So please do that. So table of contents, introduction, lit review, methodology, which may or may not be its own section, depending on what you're studying, results, discussion, conclusion, and your references and appendices. Hopefully this all looks familiar. If it doesn't, maybe we have something further to talk about. The first thing, the table of contents. If it's helpful to you, you can do a very descriptive table of contents that you later take out. So of course this has your headings and it has your page numbers, that's for your reader, but you can also add things. This is where I'll, and this is the part where I do this, or make sure to, and that's not a problem. So remember that while you're writing, everything is for you. Once you're finished, everything's for the reader. Your introduction. So the number one thing that I see when I'm doing one-to-ones with people is an introduction that does not clearly state the research question. So just make sure that along with doing all of these things, you have a thesis statement that is clear and that is a hypothesis or asking a real question. So something where I can read it and go, oh, I know what this thesis is going to be about in a line or two. After that, you're going to have your main aims and objectives. So we all know the difference between aims and objectives, what you're going to achieve and how you're going to achieve it. And just a basic broad outline of why you chose your topic, why it's important. And then as well as what the scope of your work is, the way it's going to be organized, if you need to, taking them through the argument that you're going to present. Something that you need to remember is an introduction isn't just there because that's the way we always write essays. Introductions are really important. That's the first thing that someone sees. This is really clear, really focused signposting for whoever's going to be reading your dissertation, be it people in the future who want to learn about life sciences or want to learn about computing, or the people who are marking it. So it needs to actually bring people in and say, this is what I'm doing, this is why I'm doing it. And is everyone written their introduction so far? Yeah, we're pretty well there.
It is structured, already structured.
It's structured, needs to have some filling in.
Yeah.
Absolutely, so just remember that to make it really cogently focused in your introduction. The lit review. Oh, the lit review. Everybody's favorite thing. I have a lot on the lit review. I am going to fly through it, but do stop me. I know that some people are on their literature review right now. So, the literature review is sort of to show off your skills as a researcher to your marker, as well as to give your reader important insights into your field. So in your lit review, you want to be able to show off that you know how to research critically, that you've chosen good sources, and this is the part where you want to make sure you're not just descriptive. This is the part where you want to actually analyze what people have said. So it's a really important skill. You're going to summarize what different people have said, but you're also going to show, one, why it links to your topic. Why is this relevant? And two, what are the strengths and weaknesses of what they've said? So what have they done that is added to the field, that is maybe questionable, that has limitations, and how is that showing your knowledge gap? So I like to think of the lit review as the upside down triangle. And it's also an arrow that's pointing to here. And here is the gap where we don't know the answer. So this is the overall context. This is the seminal works in your field. This is like the most preeminent life scientist said this. And then this is bringing it down. Well, and this is why it's important to, what is your life sciences topic?
Yes, my topic is forest role in web attenuation, web energy reduction, the forest role of forest, macro forest.
In energy reduction.
Wave energy reduction.
Okay.
Storm energy. Wave energy. Storm. Cyclone.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I was like, I don't know anything about it. I should have picked someone where I might know something about it. So this is where, at the top you're like, okay, lots of important research in the field of storms and trees and life science. And then as you go further down, you're going to say, okay, currently this is what we think. Okay, this is how we've said storms interact, but here's the one that did research in Finland about this, and here's the one that did research about what happens when there are no trees. But what we don't know is, in Scotland, with these trees, how does a storm react to this particular situation? Nobody's found that out before, but they found out similar information. So this research is desperately needed, and this is how I'm going to conduct it. So you want to make sure that when you're describing things, you're describing the strengths and weaknesses of them, and you're describing how they relate to what you're studying, how they relate to the fact that your question isn't answered anymore, how they point to your knowledge gap. Does that make sense to everyone? So this is for the reader to look at relating the literature directly to your own research, synthesizing the results into what is known and what is not known, what we were just talking about, and identifying areas of controversy, just showing that you've picked up on them. You don't have to solve those controversies, but you have to note that you know that they're there, and if they influence your research, you have to talk about why and how that's happened. And then this is a great place for you to say, actually, you know what, there are a lot of really interesting questions about this. I can't handle all of them in this paper. So here are some questions for further research. That's a really good thing to do. So basically, you define your topic, state the scope of your review, identify areas for debate, gaps in knowledge. This is just the quick summary, guys. State the criteria you've used to select your sources. So for instance, maybe it's only peer-reviewed journals, maybe you're looking at blogs online and there's a reason for that. You're probably looking at media videos, so, and then outline the organization of your review, i.e. say how you've presented this knowledge. Why have you presented it in the way you have? Maybe you've presented it based on methodology, maybe you've presented it based on content, maybe you've presented it based on people who are for something and people who are against it. Any of those is fine, you just have to explain yourself.
Do we need to point out how many journals we have reviewed in literature? For example, this literature review reviewed 40 journals and they were taken from this and that database?
You don't have to, no. Mm-hmm. You can if it's significant. Mm-hmm. So the main thing is maybe, if you only took them from one journal, you would want to mention that because that would be considered a weakness, that you don't have a very broad sources of information. But maybe there isn't a lot of information out there, so you can explain that. Maybe you've done a really comprehensive literature review. You've looked at your topic and you've gone, I don't remember what your topic is. What is your topic again?
Knowledge management.
Oh, that's right. I know we did speak of it before. Maybe you've gone, actually, there are 5,000 articles on knowledge management and nobody has ever brought them together before. So I've looked at 200 of those in this particular section. And then, so if that's relevant, you're saying this literature review is very comprehensive because nobody has made a comprehensive review before, or there aren't any agreements on definitions, or something like that, then you want to mention that. But don't mention things that aren't relevant. So if it's just like, oh, this is where it's from, it's not important. Because everyone knows how to go onto JSTOR and look at it. So that's not, unless there's some reason why that's important to the way you did your research or what you're saying. So that's how we determine relevance. And that's the real trick with the body of your literature review, is give sources as much detail as they merit. So if someone has written the most important paper ever on, what area of computing are you doing, Andrew?
Looking at social media, the young people's privacy and identity.
Oh, that's so interesting. Okay, and I'm happy, as soon as he went, I thought, these are going to be words I've never heard before. So at least I know what social media is. So maybe, someone wrote a really important thing about social media and identity that everyone refers to. So that obviously would take up some of your time. Whereas if it's quite obscure or something that you want to add because it was interesting and relevant, but it wasn't that important, that's obviously not going to take up that much of your literature review. So just judging how much does it merit in terms of, one, it's relevant to your topic, and also the quality of the source. Like, was it a properly academic, rigorous research, properly done research? And also the interest. So that's the lowest down. That doesn't matter as much, but it is important.